So, welcome to a new series of Totally Content, the podcast that talks to people involved in content management and ask them to share their ideas, their knowledge, their experience, and ultimately help others to become totally content as well. Unfortunately, Elizabeth Knolst can't join us this week. She sends her apologies, but she'll be back next week. Our guest this week is Adrian O'Meara, Global Product Manager at Twinings Ovaltine. Adrian has a long career in content management, working with companies like Oxford University Press and Hallmark. I watched his talk on people, process, and technology at the Henry Stewart Dam Conference in the summer, and I've been looking forward to speaking to him ever since. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Matt.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. You?
Not bad, not bad. I have got my tea. I have licorice tea here, and I've got my IWM mug, which says, "While there is tea, there is hope." So I'm on brand, and
That's very good. I'm glad to hear it.
yes, yeah. Do you want to talk about your hot drink before we start?
Yeah, so I don't drink a lot of tea, actually, hot tea, but I do drink. Last year we launched sparkling tea in the UK, and I really like that, and we've done lots of activations around that, and it's really exciting to be part of a new product range.
Okay. Brilliant. Yes, that's very good. So we'll get more into that as we go through. But be in English, we're both obsessed by tea in different ways. Right? So this is going to be a good one. Your talk at Henry Stewart, it was entitled "Well Brewed," how people, process, and technology were blended together. I just wanted to ask you first about your philosophy for implementing improvements and transformation with content management, and how the people, process, and technology kind of feeds into that.
Yeah, certainly. So I think it's really important that there's not one thing over another, and I think that's why the title of it, "Blended Together," was the important part, because they're all as equally as important. And I know I specifically spoke about technology, processes, and people, but also there is obviously the one, and I know Elizabeth likes this a lot, around the data side of things as well. But that does back up a lot of the other areas as well. But certainly I focus on the people, technology, and process. And in particular, it was named in the way that it was people, process, and technology in that order, in specific reason, because certainly the people side of things, I really strongly believe, is the one thing that you have to get right and you have to build on over the years. And certainly around the people side of things, you've got to really listen to what people want and what they need. And that can be whether that's the program managers, business leaders, or the end users. They all need to have their own needs and wants of a system. And it's really trying to understand what they want and really listening to them as well, because very often they will tell you things, but very often you have to ask again and again and again. So I can talk a little bit more around people side of things as well.
Please, because I mean that is often in my experience, always the most challenging part, and if you get that right, the rest tends to fall into place.
Yeah, that's it. And certainly, like, recruitment and things takes a long time. Recruitment takes a really long time. It's very expensive as well, so you really want to be trying to get it right in the first place as well. So in my current role, we were quite fortunate that we were able to recruit people around the world, but again, it's really looking for what people are, how they're going to fit into the teams, and how they're going to fit and work with you as well. More so, and I still believe this in every role I've ever been in, the people and working with the team is far more than the skill set. The skill set, in many cases, you can learn technology. Yes, if you can't turn a computer on, then yes, you may have some difficulties, but if you've got some wherewithal for technology, you can do it. But actually being able to work with a team and being able to present ideas, being able to work with each other is really important. And the environment that you work in, as to that, will also help. If it's a small team, you've really got to, even on a big team, you still got that your own local team needs to get on really well. But also as the bigger overall organization, you all have to fit in somewhere, and getting that right in some places can be difficult. And also on a more personal level as well, I think, where you're working with these different people, it's got to be right for you as well.
Yep.
I'm quite fortunate. I've had a long career through DAM and some other areas as well, and had some really nice organizations I've worked in. But there's others where I thought, I don't know if I actually quite fit here, and I want more. So that's got to be right for you as well. And you've got to be willing to almost put your neck out a little bit, as the saying goes, and actually try different things till you find where you're happy as well, and things, and what you're good at as well, I think is a good thing as well.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the added complexity of a global team and global stakeholders, where you have to influence them and really listen to their needs remotely, which is tough.
It can be very tough, and fortunately, I'm old enough now to have worked with a lot of overseas offices for many, many years. Of course, before COVID times, when people were not used to even having their cameras on or doing video calls. People didn't want to come on camera and things many years ago. Now it's kind of become the norm. So that's made a big difference. But certainly the culture aspects are still there, definitely. And of course, there is the language as well. I am not fortunate enough to look to speak other languages, and I always appreciate the effort that the other markets put in to be able to speak to you and have just a free flowing conversation like we're having today. It always fascinates me that they can do that. And as well, when you are pushing them, for example, and getting them to really think, they will often have to jump back into their own language, which then actually are really thinking, and then they can relay it back to you when they have thought it through. So that's important, and just appreciating you may need to give them a bit more time to be able to understand things. And again, some people, when English is the second language as well, is they may prefer some things in writing, so they can actually read it rather than sit there listening to you, because again, with accents and things and words that you come out with, and especially like when you get excited and start talking faster, it can be difficult for people to say that. So I think that's really useful to remember as well. But like we try, and that's where some of the tech is helping now, actually, where we're using the auto translation. So I'm doing training material now that's being auto translated for me, which it's perhaps not good enough to teach somebody that language or teach somebody English, but it's enough for the training material for the using the software and applications, definitely.
That's great. Yeah.
And with being, like I said in my introduction, with working at Oxford University Press, you really have to appreciate English as a second language rather than your first language as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the other sort of people aspect of that trio of things is that the people on the vendor side of the technology that you're using as well, and the communication with them to make sure that they understand what you need and the priorities. And
yes, that's right. And I think I've been in quite a fortunate position through my career, in that one of the first where I really started getting involved with DAM many years ago was there was no such thing as SaaS. We actually worked with the vendor and actually helped them develop their core product that was on sale, and that was good for us, but also good for the rest of the world. And like you say, you've got to really start to understand what you want out of a system, what you want it to do, because then try and translate that into technology speak in times, and also understand what they're trying to tell you as well. But one thing that happened to me in particular was I had a bit of a break from DAM for a few years, for about 3 or 4 years, and I actually went onto the commercial side of product management. So you're actually then listening to people in a completely different spectrum, because you need to understand what the customer wants for the software that you're building. So now I use that a lot when I'm talking nowadays to vendors, then, because like nearly everybody's SaaS now, of course. I kind of know what I need to ask them. I need to know how to present what I want to them, but also what they're going to be capable of doing or what willing to do. So gone are the days where I could ring up and say, I need the software to change and do this, because I know that needs to fit in with all their backlog of every other customer requirements as well. So what is the priority? And that's where these sort of conversations and the conferences come in actually quite a lot, because where you get to talk to the other customers of the vendors is really valuable, because you can see where you've got the same pain points or the same issues, or you can not gang up on the vendors, but you can at least say, actually, look, this is something that's affecting quite a lot of us. What can we do, or how can we design something that's going to make it work better for everybody? So certainly this year in particular, because this is my first time using our current vendors, we've made a really good network with other customers as well. So actually we're really using that to our advantage now to both learn from the system, but also, again, like you say, how we go back to the vendors and say, look, we want it to do this, please.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think it requires a great deal of empathy on, but also on the other side, I mean, for a good kind of product vendor, they need to be able to empathize as well with the problems you're having. But
they do, yeah. And you do need to build. It goes back to what we were saying at the start, when you initially started, how do you work with people and things. But actually, yeah, the way that actually you build that relationship with a vendor, I think, is probably one of the most important things, because you've got to, again, if you've got a customer success person, they need to understand what you're about and what you're good at, and likewise, you need to know what they're going to be pushing backwards and forwards. And do you need to push them more to say, look, I want to speak to a product manager, please, because I can probably explain what I want better to them than rather than going through you,
right?
Or vice versa. They say, actually, no, you need to speak to us because we can gather it together with all the other things. So that relationship building, and again, back to the people side, I think you've got to get really good at, and it does take a lot of time as well.
Yeah. And actually, what you said before is, the product management skill set that you've developed over the years is really fundamental to all of that, right?
That's right. And I think, and product management, again, a bit like SaaS, when I started my career, product management didn't even exist.
No.
To come around to more role, and my role currently has product manager in the title, but it's nothing like the product management I was doing on the commercial side. It's a very broad spectrum, but it comes back to that. It's still about that talking to people and that translating between technology speak and real people speak, and understanding that and being able to be that as, and I know a lot of people say there's a bridge between those areas and being able to talk to all those different levels. But yeah, product management is a wide ranging set of things, I think. And a bit like the whole agile piece,
right?
Very much like I always say about agile, you should take the best bits of agile and use them, rather than worrying too much about the framework, because the framework itself, you can get so bogged down in all the frameworks and say, I've got to follow this rule, I've got to follow this rule. But actually, when you think about it, you use agile because it's faster and it's easier. So you don't want to overcomplicate it. You're actually using agile in the way it's designed there. So you're just picking the best bits. So even now, a large organization where we are, we pick the best bits of agile. We don't use them all. We use some of them. And we use them to work right for us. And I'd say that's true for product management as well. The skill sets are the same. And it's like I said at the start of the question, is going over the years, that hasn't changed. You're still doing the same thing, just because the job title has changed a bit. The same has always been true of both the software and also the talking to the people as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a good point. It's and talking about how things have changed, but how have you seen DAM systems develop during your career? I mean, you mentioned SaaS, but I just wondered, from a vendor point of view as well, and their expectations of customers, as well as the technology.
Yeah, certainly. So certainly SaaS has been a big one, a huge change, I think. From how it used to work, like you'd buy something, you'd have to go through a lot of process to install it in on premise and do all that. And the cloud made a huge difference as well, makes it more storage. But the fundamentals still have to be there. You still need to be able to store, search, and manage rights. They all do that. That's really important. You've got to make sure that's right. And honestly, most of the way that the products have developed over the years has been adding new stuff on. They add new and more things on, but actually they've still got to get that core right. And honestly, some of the systems now, they don't do that real core really well. So you've got to be quite careful in that respect and make sure you're picking the one that's going to work for you. But as somebody who's a user of the systems and from a platform manager point of view, I've got to make sure I don't get carried away with the shiny and new as well, not get excited by the new stuff coming out, because everyone's on about, of course, we'll talk about it in a bit, no doubt, about AI, but actually it's just another thing and just another piece of change that's coming. So we were all excited about automation at one time. So they're just these new things extra to make it's supposed to make life easier and quicker, and make processes quicker and things, so that you can do all the nice stuff. In reality, there just seems to be another layer of technology they place on top half the time, so you need to be really mindful of that. But that will be, generally the platforms themselves nowadays are a lot easier to use than they were. It comes with the general text easier to use these days, and people can pick it up. I spend far less time now developing training material, for example, than I used to, because you can just use it. And a lot of that has come about, again, when I was on the other commercial side of product management, where you're developing apps for mobiles, people are not told how to use those apps. You just expect them to work. You get on your phone and it works. You download a new app, you can use it. You don't have to be told how to use it. Or if you do, you've got a bit of work to do to go and find it. But generally, they should be that easy. And I use this quote very often, with the AI sort of things, where for years humans have had to really learn how to use technology, but now it's the other way around. Now you can actually expect the software to do what you tell it to. So that's going to continue as well. But the other thing is also, I think, they're easier to use, definitely. They're a lot easier to implement as well. There's still the process side of things, and making sure your business processes are all there and all that. But actually, the tech side of implementing it, you just need to get some logins and maybe build an integration, or and you may need to connect it to your Active Directory or a system, something like that. We used to have to do all that and develop the systems and do everything else, and now that makes it a lot easier as well. But I also think, where they're a lot more visible, they're a lot more capable of doing things that are built into the system now as well. So, for example, the one we currently have, we can share a link straight out to a website from that asset, and it can be then it's always updated automatically. Whereas, again, 10, 15 years ago, you would have had to bought a content delivery network separate to it and then have that in. But now it's kind of all bundled together. So that makes it a big difference. There's one area I think they are also possibly lacking in a little bit, dare I say it, is rights management. I think the rights management could be easier for people, for platform managers like myself. They can be really complicated to set up, and even more complex to maintain. And rights is a complicated piece anyway, for images, for video and audio, and of course, and even fonts and things like that. They've all got their own complexities. And we have to expect to know a good range of those different rights and things, but we need the tech to really help us do that, make that piece as easy and visible to people as possible. I think that's one area I think could do with more on as well. So don't just keep adding shiny and new. Please give us some of the original stuff that we really, as all in my previous roles, DAM managers have been asking for, and these are the things that make it easier, because it can be really complicated rights, and we want to make sure it's right for everybody as well.
Right. That's really interesting. So vendors listening to this, remember, store, search, rights. That's what the core things that you need to deliver. The other things.
Search is definitely better. Search is definitely way better than it used to be, and you do need, and of course, again with the AI, you do need to put less metadata in to let the searches work. They're a lot better than they were, but again, the more we can make them, the better even would help as well.
Great. So sort of on that, so talking about AI and tagging and things like that, I mean, where do you see some of the opportunities for innovation in terms of DAM products over the sort of coming 12 months or so?
Certainly. I think again, what we were talking about earlier about not getting carried away with the shiny and new is important. I think we are going to see a lot more. I think really importantly, though, is not just sticking AI for the sake of it. You need to understand what you want it to do. And many people say, we've got to have AI in our products. Okay, what do you want it to do? Well, we don't know what we want to do. We just know we've got to have AI because it's the thing that everybody's talking about. But actually, very often it may be just some automation pieces you need. It may be some ways of working you need to change, but the AI will back it up. But what I have seen certainly is the AI certainly helped a huge amount. We mentioned it earlier, about the training material for being multi-language. and those sort of things. Multi-language is so much easier now than it used to be. That's come on leaps and bounds. When it first appeared, translation was not very good, so you start to have a human, but that's becoming less and less important now. You can trust it now, which perhaps people weren't doing before. I think people like where we've all got Alexas and things in our homes now, you're much more trusting of this as well, which makes it more acceptable. But also, I think the general message of the enrichment of assets, I think, is going to be really important, because at the moment, we still do spend a lot of time tagging and making things right. And I think there's still a need for that. But actually, that's getting better all the time as well. And because you can train it on your own data sets, that's going to be really important as well. So an organization like ours, we've got a big heritage play. What can we learn out of the Twinings family history? What's in there that we don't know about, that we can pull out the AI and the metadata? One of the live examples we had was when we started the Heritage Archive, was that we were putting some sales ledgers in, and they were just scanned, and it was really handwritten script text, almost like a doctor's prescription writing. We couldn't read it, but the AI actually picked it up and added it as a tag, and could actually understand the writing that we couldn't even read as a human. So it's
fantastic.
Wow, that's quite impressive. There are some shortfalls, of course, but I think that's going to get better and better. And I also see the process side of things. I think process mapping is still important. You need to understand your business processes, but where you can use easy software to map your process out and actually make the system do what you expect it to, I think that's going to be improved a lot as well. But again, I think there's a lot more work in that, but you see that in every piece of software going as well now. So again, it's not just restricted to DAM. I think generally that's going to be easier as well. And I think lastly, again, we were just talking a minute ago about rights. I think the compliance piece could be a big area as well, where you're to be used across, make sure that everything's compliant, where you shouldn't need to remove a load of assets from the web or something like that because something's happened in the media or something, and you have to take them out. Being able to do that and pull all your assets back, I think, is going to be important as well. But lastly, I think is particularly around AI is, and I'm going to be quite blunt here, but the biggest change is going to be the proliferation of the amount of content that's actually needed, but the amount of stuff that's going to be out there and the amount of crap stuff that's going to be out there. We need to be really clear. And again, for like a heritage brand, we need to make sure that our stuff is really authentic and it is the real deal. And I think that's where it's going to become increasingly difficult to see what's the difference between AI stuff and human generated, but really being able to differentiate what AI is good at and what humans are good at, and make sure that we are producing real good high quality content. And I think that's going to be the real, almost a niche, but actually the people that do the good content correctly are going to stand out a mile.
No, it's such a huge issue, and trust and authenticity. I know that's a topic that Elizabeth spoke at Henry Stewart about, but there is also the copyright aspect of this as well, isn't there? And the
rights will become even more important again for those agents that are coming and looking at your data to make sure they've got the latest, most up-to-date information available. Again, a brand like ours, where there's going to be changes around what ingredients can be used in products and those type of things, they're going to change all times rules. So you need to make sure that actually the compliance is there and that actually we're up to date and we're not giving out false information as well. And when you don't control all that, because it's the agents, it's got to be making sure we're really on top of everything we can produce, so that when the agents do come in, they do find the right information at all times.
Get the basics right and then build on top.
Definitely.
So for people starting out in their DAM careers today, what skills would you recommend that they focus on, with an eye on the future?
So I'm not going to say just focus straight on AI, because I know everybody's going to that's going to have a given. There is that saying doing the rounds at the minute. If you AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows AI is. I think is quite something to remember, actually. But the fact that you can learn that, but really, actually, I would say for new people starting out, really try and learn as many different areas as possible. Don't get down into the nitty gritty of learning every detail about everything, but as a broader subset as you can find. Because if you try and specialize too early, you might find you're in the wrong thing that doesn't work for you. You know,
That's really good. Yeah.
like it for the time being, but actually as you grow and your life changes and things and life moves on or tech moves on, you don't want to be too specialized, but in that as well. So I think that's really important. As wide as you possibly can, while you've got the chance and opportunity when you're younger, and you can learn a lot more, because of course when you're younger you do learn faster.
Yeah.
And that's really important as well. And I think more from a personal point of view as well, you know, things like you've got to be careful not to chase salary as well, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, it is important and you've got to pay the bills and things, but you've got to figure out again what's right for you. For some people, yes, salary is the be all and end all. That's exactly what they're focused on. But other people, you know, family life may be more important. Find out what is right for you. And you'll only find that over a period of time. That's why I say the broader things you can learn till you understand what is right for you, the better you'll be, because then you do get those opportunities to go down and try different things out. So try as many things as you can as well. But I would say as well, when you do start to find those things that interest you, that will allow you to enjoy your work. And that is a huge piece. And I know, Matt, talking to you, you know, we've been around for some time now. Actually, that's a really valuable thing. You've got to enjoy what you're doing so you can go on and talk about it like this. You know, you can chat about it and be excited about it, and you want to do the next thing. You want to try these things out. That's going to make it much easier for you, and that will actually help you as well, because if you're enjoying it, the people around you will enjoy the role of work as well, because then you can have this talk backwards and forwards. I think that's important. And back to what I was saying earlier about the people side of things, making sure you fit in the team is really important. So you need to find the team that works for you, you know, because that builds the trust. Back to the authenticity we're saying again. The trust within your teams and your business is absolutely invaluable, because people will actually trust you to just go and do things, and you can just get on with it. And likewise, you can ask them to do things and they'll go and do it. I know it sounds really basic, but actually you have to step back sometimes and realize actually how these things come together, because that makes a big difference. So then say where I've been speaking at these conferences and things, I think that's really good, because you're talking to other people, you get to know other people. Like networking, I think is really, really important. So although I'm now at a stage where I can stand up and talk in front of people, and I can talk on these sort of podcast or something like this, there's been many times I've been stood at a conference, I've not wanted to go and speak to somebody because there's got a big barrier. It's like, so you've got to try and get through that and actually put yourself out there a little bit and say, you go and talk to them, or I'm going to make a beeline. And even if it's only just to say, hello, how are you?
Absolutely.
You build up those relationships, you know, and you're going to progress much more as well. So try not to specialize too early on, but I would say as your career progresses, find the areas that you really like and try and aim for those, and really sort of narrow it down then at the right point, and then really go for it.
It's such good advice. And I you know, especially you know, when you're attending a conference and you've got something in common with everyone in the room straight away, and everyone is passionate about that topic, usually because they're at the conference. Why would they bother going otherwise? You know, and so, but you know, what's to stop you? You know, do go and introduce yourself, and you know, just to see what other people's experiences are. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. And I think as well, like, so I'm not, you know, I'm not the loudest person out there, and the most aggressive. I get quite laid back. So actually, but I'm quite determined underneath. So very often you'll hear when you've got two people doing the same role, and there's some people can be like, they have to answer the loudest person in the room. Actually, you quite often find these other people doing just as much work for you, but it just goes along nicely and works there, and gets
definitely.
A bee in your bonnet and you go for it. But definitely go and try and put yourself out there and talk to people if you can.
That's great. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. So this is the question we ask all our guests. If you could change one thing to be totally content, what would it be?
I think it very much builds on what I've been talking about here and earlier. Again, it's like, you know, you can overcome anything if you want to by breaking stuff down into small chunks. Like, we can easily get overwhelmed by, you know, these huge projects and these huge things you're trying to do, or really complicated things. But it's not project management, you know, breaking things down to the small things and what you can tackle, and understanding what's in your own control and not getting too concerned about stuff that you can't control is really important. And knowing who you are as well, I think, and what you're good at as well makes a big difference, and what you're not so good at, and not being afraid to ask for help where you need it. Just actually hold your hand up and say, yeah, I can't do that. I'm very good at that. Actually, I need somebody else to help me with that. And it can be difficult for people to do that, especially if you're quite introverted as well. It can be difficult for you to ask for help, or you want to do it because you think you should have to. But actually, there's usually a team of people around you where it is. But and building from that, I think we need to celebrate those little things. And you hear this quite often. It can sound a little bit cheesy, but even if you just celebrate every little tiny thing, it actually goes a long way. It might just be, say, treat yourself to a beer one evening because that day's gone really well, or it could be go for a run, could be go for a nice walk, or whatever it may be. Make the most of it, because those little wins and those little joys that make it go a long way, because you're going to have days that are going to be harder. They're going to be things that don't go your way, but trying to remember all those positives, actually, they can build up over time and time again.
Fantastic. I love that. That's is so important. And I can see the mental health first aider coming out there as well. But it's such an important message. Something actually, I wish somebody had told me that earlier in my career as well. It's okay to ask for help and things.
Yeah, and I think actually, just to finish off and to wrap that off there, is really don't be afraid to speak. And no matter, somebody will always listen to that, whatever it may be. They may not have answers for you, but they'll always listen, and they'll always have an open ear. There'll be somebody to speak to, and it's really important that we bear that in mind, again, just generally in life, because that's it's so difficult, especially again for men in particular as well. Can find it really difficult to ask for help and speak to people. And I think getting outside and just talking to people wherever you can is going to make a huge difference.
Fantastic. Wise words there, Adrian. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your experience and knowledge with us. And thank you.
No, thank you very much. It's been really enjoyable.